Hi, and welcome to Coach Jude at Rangitoto. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about the difference between happiness and pleasure. Now, you might be thinking, what's this got to do with the price of fish? Or more importantly, how will this help you attain and maintain a healthy weight? Well, friends, this has the potential to completely transform your relationship with food. Intrigued? Well, hang on to your seats while I explode one of the biggest misconceptions on the planet. Let me introduce you to what I call the big fat lie. Essentially, that food makes you happy. This is best demonstrated by my sharing experiences before and after my transformation. Back when I was 38 and celebrating my mum's 60th birthday, I probably weighed about 270 pounds. At my own 60th celebration, I was about 155 pounds. The physical transformation is obvious. I went from a size 24 to a size 10. Less obvious is the mental transformation. When I think of my mind back then, it could be best portrayed by thinking of a pile of rubbish. It was grey, decaying and distinctly unpleasant, not somewhere you'd like to be at all. Whereas now my mind feels light, colourful, exciting, and it's full of endless possibilities. Now, when I was 38, I ate and drank anything and everything I fancied, but it didn't make me happy in the slightest. My motto at the time was, it's all too hard and what's the point anyway? Not long after this, I had a complete nervous breakdown. Now my eating is much more discerning, but my mental health is on another planet. My current motto is, life is fabulous and I can do anything I set my mind to. So what was going on? Well, when I was 38, I didn't know the difference between pleasure and happiness. I was perpetually chasing one, but actually indulging almost exclusively in the other, and made myself completely miserable in the process. So the key element of getting this right is being able to identify the two different experiences, understanding the relationship between pleasure and happiness and the steps required to get you trucking in the right groove. And for more help getting into that groove, don't forget to check out my free comprehensive guide to kickstarting your weight loss. If you're struggling generally with your weight loss or you're just getting started, the guide includes lots of tips and techniques to help you. I've included a link in the description below. So how do we know whether we're experiencing happiness or pleasure? Robert Lustig identifies 7 different attributes. For me, the key ones include that pleasure is brief and often intense, whereas happiness can last much longer, but is typically not as powerful. Pleasure is driven by the hormone dopamine, whereas happiness tends to be driven by serotonin. But possibly the most important, pleasure can be achieved with substances, for example, food, alcohol, drugs, etc., whereas happiness cannot. But how often, when we're out of sorts and feeling a little down, do we reach for food or alcohol? Yes, these do give us a brief moment of enjoyment, but this doesn't last. Don't believe me? Try it for yourself. Next time you're feeling a bit down, rate your mood between 1 and 10. Then have one of your favourite treats and monitor your mood several times over the next hour. My guess is that as you anticipate eating the treat, your mood will go up. However, when you eat the snack, your mood might be a bit lower and then it will quickly drop back within the next 10 to 15 minutes. Possibly even lower than when you started, as you register the mild disappointment that your snack just didn't deliver. So if eating or having a glass of wine isn't going to cut it, what will? Let me ask you a question. What makes you happy or puts you in a good mood? This often isn't an easy question to answer, and in my experience, lots of people really don't know. Think about a time in your past when you were happy. How did it feel to you? What was happening in your life? One book I read, called The Pleasure Trap, uses the analogy of a treasure hunt to try and explain this. Essentially, happiness comes from the hunt, finding the clues, the excitement of making progress and so on. It's all about those positive vibes we get when we achieve something or do something that has value, and it can last all day. Whereas the pleasure is the actual moment of finding the treasure. It's brief but intense. Okay, that makes sense. But it also implies that maybe the two are related. And I think that they are. Another similar take on this idea was proposed in the excellent TV series Squid Game. This made for some really uncomfortable and thought-provoking viewing. But the ending was a real surprise. Especially the idea that the man living in abject poverty and the man who is fabulously wealthy both suffer from the same problem. They are both miserable. For that first guy, life is all hard work and no pleasure. And for the second, when you can have anything and everything you want, there is no pleasure or happiness. Happiness comes from a balance between the two. If you work hard and you can see you are making progress, that's extremely positive and you feel good. However, if you don't have to strive for anything and can have anything you want, that leads to an empty life. Imagine, for example, if you could get a degree just by requesting one. How much satisfaction do you think you would feel in displaying it on the wall? Probably not much. So what does this have to do with weight loss? Well, a common challenging behaviour is if we are feeling in a bit of a funk, then we're much more likely to overeat in the hope that this will cheer us up. Now, personally, I know it doesn't work, but I still do it. However, now at least we know why. When we're in a funk, we are unhappy. The food provides pleasure, but it doesn't really affect our happiness or mood in the slightest. So what could you do differently? Firstly, reflecting on what actually does boost your mood and makes you feel good is not a bad place to start. For me, getting out for my run is definitely up there, but it's also things like coming down in the morning and the kitchen is all clean and tidy. It's having a plan or a to-do list for the day and actually crossing things off. Or what I call leaning on the spade moments, where you actually see the fruits of your labour and take a moment just to enjoy it. Others include spending time with family and friends, getting into the beautiful countryside, feeling the sun on my face. What's on your list? So if you are in a bit of a funk, you could try some of these happiness boosting strategies. But here's the rub. The challenge here is often when we are in a bit of a funk, we are completely demotivated and struggle to do any of the things that make us feel better. Instead, we mope around, watch mindless TV, eat and feel sorry for ourselves. So what is the answer? Well, let me tell you a little story. A few weeks back, I spent 9 hours travelling to Preston and back to enable me to go through a load of church records looking for a marriage record for one set of my great-grandparents. I'm really into family history research. I had no luck at all and found nothing. So basically, lots of hard work with no pleasure. This is when I started to eat off plan, because my effort and reward were out of balance. And food does give me pleasure. To use an oft-used phrase, I deserved a treat. However, as the pleasure and the effort weren't connected, there weren't any positive feelings. Now, this was a powerful insight. For the first time, I understood why I was craving a reward or a pleasure. But secondly, I knew for this pleasure to be effective, it had to be related to my effort Otherwise, it's pointless and at best fourth rate. Does this sound like you? You spend all day working hard, making sure that you do all you need to do, and then at the end of the day, you feel entitled to give yourself a little treat. And often that's where the overeating starts. Makes sense, doesn't it? So how can we reframe this so that we recognise those rewards during the day? The way to do this is to focus on your achievements and progress towards your goal, that leaning on the spade moment that I described earlier. Just taking a few moments to reflect at the end of the day on what you've actually achieved can make a huge difference to your mood. The thing about this exercise is that it creates a virtuous spiral. You do something, you recognise that this has value and is moving you forward, so you feel good. Once you feel good, then you're much more likely to continue to put effort in, get more positive feedback, etc. The trick is to acknowledge the reward. The problem is that most of us are so busy, we rarely pause and instead rush on to the next task. So this strategy may help you avoid some low mood moments. But as we all know, we are going to be hit by one at some point. What do we do then when we can't be bothered to do anything? The best advice I can offer here is to set yourself a really small goal, something you know you can do even on your worst day, and preferably something that you enjoy. And once you've done it, then you acknowledge your progress and say quietly to yourself, well done you. This starts you moving forward into a more positive mindset. What sorts of things might help? This is likely to be really personal, but for me, it could be setting myself a challenge of reading a chapter of a book, say on behaviour change, doing some ironing. No, I don't actually enjoy this, but I do get a massive leaning on the spade moment when I empty the ironing bag. And I make it more enjoyable by watching my latest favourite soap opera. Other ideas could be to sort out a drawer that's got out of control or to tidy a flower bed. You get the idea. Basically build a funk-busting toolbox for yourself that you can go to whenever you need, something that over time you will begin to realise is far more effective than chocolate. So what are the takeaways from today's episode? That food and drink does not make you happy. At best, it can be enjoyable and provide a short burst of pleasure. The most satisfying and happiest life comes from having a balance of effort and reward. The reward, though, must be directly related to the effort, otherwise it really doesn't work. Now, this may represent a completely new way of thinking for you and be a real eye-opener. However, on its own, it's unlikely to change your behaviour overnight. That's because the story that food makes us happy is probably something you've been telling yourself for a very long time, and the myth is constantly being reinforced by every advert that you see for food and drink. However, awareness and an understanding that this is a myth is the start. The next step is to build your own self-awareness of exactly how food affects you, and realising the real truth is when you will start to change your behaviour. And remember, if you need more ideas because you're just setting out on your weight loss journey, or perhaps you've stalled, check out the link below to my free comprehensive guide to kickstart your weight loss. And on that thought, I will leave you. As always, I thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. Don't forget to like this episode if you found it useful, subscribe if you want to learn more, and don't forget to share your progress, your triumphs, and your insights with me. All the best. Until next time. Bye.